92% of city funds come from street and highway transportation bonds, which we will call street bonds, and are funded entirely by Omaha property taxes. Every 4 years or so, the city asks voters to approve the issue of street bonds. This year, on May 15th, the city is asking voters to approve the biggest issue ever. In return for this approval, the city commits to complete some transportation projects and to perform 3 steps. Without a published strategic transportation plan, Omaha's master plan is a collection of recommendations, concepts, and generalities that are mostly ignored. The mayor does not acknowledge that the city charter requires a ranking of each project's degree of conformity with the master plan. The few metrics that could be used for such a ranking are ignored. That leaves us with an unknown committee that meets behind closed doors, uses undisclosed priorities and needs to decide which projects go forward without any public accountability. Such an undisciplined process leads to disjointed use of public funds and perpetuates the fiscally unsustainable, short-term Band-Aid projects that the city's own master plan warns against. This is no way to decide how to invest $151 million of property taxes. Where are those bonds spent? Most of the city funds are planned for motorist capacity and repairs. And the trend is for a higher percentage to motorist capacity, so that by 2023, streetscapes will get only 1.31%, cycling 0.04%, and transit, as ever, 0%. These numbers show that the city is settling on the unsustainable street widening and motorist capacity projects that the master plan warns against. But the city deserves credit for improving the CIP presentation and making the projects behind these numbers more visible. Now for a look at project execution. Are the projects built as planned? For this review, we'll consider that a project went as planned if the city expenditure is within 25% of the plan. Outside of that, we'll say it did not go as planned. 5 projects went as planned, with a combined expense of $10.4 million, just under the $10.6 million budget. So far, so good. In the next category, 2 projects spent between $1.25 million to double their budget. 7 projects spent more than double their budget, a lot more than double. And finally, 23 unplanned projects received $17.3 million. At the other end, 7 projects used 1/4 to 3/4 of their budget. 5 used less than 1/4, and 7 had 0 expenses. These projects were canceled or delayed. If the city were a private contractor, these cost overruns would put it out of business. But the city can simply fund overruns and unplanned work by delaying some projects and eventually build the delayed projects with the next bond issue. The 06 street bonds were not spent as planned. Citizens paid more to get less. Let's look at the most recent numbers available. How many projects received the funding as planned? 0. Not a single project was within 25% of his plan. 2 projects were in the next category, 5 spent more than double the plan, and 5 unplanned projects received funding. 1 project used a fraction of its budget, and the rest of the $15 million of appropriations was delayed with virtually no work. So 8 months into 2016, the city was unable to forecast its 2016 spending with any accuracy. If we combine the data from all the reported years, we find that the city's 1-year plans are not followed any better than its 6-year plans. And the numbers get bigger. This analysis applies to the reported expenditures. we can only assume that the same inaccuracies apply to the 61% of expenditures that the city should report but doesn't. This is no way to manage the spending of $151 million of property taxes. We've looked at the city's process for managing taxpayer-funded street bonds. Here's the current process. An unknown committee meets behind closed doors, uses undisclosed criteria to decide which projects go forward without any public or strategic accountability. The city publishes the selected projects and their estimated cost in the Capital Improvement Program and asks voters to approve the property tax-funded bonds to pay for the projects. The city deviates wildly from the planned schedule and budget, masking huge overruns and unplanned work by delaying more than half the projects. With some political will, the city could provide a strategic transportation plan that goes beyond the generalities and recommendations of the master plan, a gradual implementation of the transportation element, a transparent project selection process with rankings to promote alignment with strategic plans, a transparent reporting of project finance and execution, a transparent reporting of changes to the plan. It's what the city charter envisioned, and it's what Omaha voters deserve.